G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright, people. Midweek report time. I think we will kick it off with AJ Usyk, and we'll talk a bit about that. But also, we'll start with AJ Robert Garcia. It's interesting, isn't it? I've seen I want to say it's been about 50-50 with people from what I've seen on my videos, on Hatman's videos, on Dell Blue Collar Sports videos. It's been a bit 50-50 with people. Some people are claiming, no, G, this is a good move. This is a good move for Anthony Joshua. We're happy with this. He needed to get rid of Robin McCracken. I think it's universally agreed. Whether you think that this move is good or bad, I think it's universally agreed Robin McCracken needed to go. But some people feel that this will add to AJ's training camp. The fact that Robert Garcia, albeit not with heavyweights, I'll touch that now in a sec, is in the camp with AJ and going to help AJ Fernandez along the way. Because Fernandez, it is, if you think about it, quite similar to what I said about it. The same thing with Ben Davison. Now, I know Ben Davison does get a lot of flack, but when you think about it, Ben Davison took on Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury was God knows where at the time and brought him through the easy fights. But when it was the big fight against Wilder, I don't care, Freddie Roach was there as the cut man, but I believe he was there to just help guide Ben Davison through it at the same time, because Freddie Roach, you could lose. How many big fights has he been in? For decades upon decades, he's been in huge fights, trained with some of the biggest fighters in the sport, Manny Pacquiao to name a few, trained by Emmanuel Stewart. Having that bit of experience in the camp, especially for a newish trainer to the scene, taking on such a big challenge, it'll pay dividends. And in many ways you could say it didn't really for some people would say it didn't really for Ben Davison. I've always said that I think Ben Davison is a good trainer. I just think that he doesn't do himself any favours with the camera. He loves the camera. And that can rub people up the wrong way when he always has an opinion on stuff where he really shouldn't just have it. Anyway, quote AJ here directly on working with Robert Garcia and AJ Fernandez. A happy fighter is a dangerous fighter. I'm in a good place now. Garcia's here. It's not about changing the style. It's about his experience. Adding to this camp is priceless. So interesting. Okay, so I've said it once, I'll say it again. I just don't think that this will work. I'm there to be proven wrong, but I just think that I just can't see this working. I had a list of some of the fighters that Robert Garcia has trained, and I know this isn't probably the fullest list you'd ever see, but bear with me and I'll get it for you here. So I knew he hadn't trained many heavyweights, and Brian Valeria, who's obviously best days were a flyweight, Rios, Pavlik, Jose Ramirez, Virgil Ortiz, so I don't believe he trains anymore, Jackson Martinez, Margarito was probably the biggest guy in terms of just dimensions that you could see here. So Javier Garcia, Delorme, Daenerys trained at one point, Guzman, Josecito Lopez, Maidana, Abner Mares. So we're talking from flyweight realistically up to 160, 154 pounds. Now, I've said it once, I'll say it again. That experience in terms of big time fights, it's good. He's worked with some good fighters, but none of them have been heavyweight. And I just think that having a fighter with a proven track record with heavyweights, I definitely think that'll pay dividends. It doesn't mean that he's had to base his whole career off training them. If you look at someone like Peter Fury, and obviously I know it'll never happen. I know he wouldn't work with Anthony Joshua just because he doesn't want to probably burn every bridge with Tyson. But someone like Peter Fury in AJ's corner, now Peter Fury loves the heavyweights, and apart from Savannah Marshall, I think that might be it. I think he did he train like a middleweight or a light middleweight at one stage? But I think apart from Savannah Marshall, he pretty much sticks to the heavyweights. Does Peter Fury. As someone like that, I'd be a lot more kind of like, yeah, you made a good decision there. Robert Garcia, look, I'm there to be proven wrong. I genuinely don't think I will. I know Eddie Hearn has been saying he reckons AJ stopped Usyk in 6th. He would say, like, he's his promoter. He's hardly going to turn around and say Usyk will batter AJ this time even more convincingly. I doubt he'll say that. I think Usyk will win. I still do. I think that AJ does need to change the game plan up. That I think we're all in agreement with. But I just can't see him beating Usyk. I think it's going to take someone. It's going to take Usyk to have an off night and someone like a Tyson Fury to be able to. And against Fury, Usyk, that is such a good fight. I mean, some people would say Fury beats him easy. No, he doesn't. I don't think he does. If he beats him, and I probably would pick Tyson Fury over Usyk, but he wouldn't have an easy fight. Make no mistake about that. But they've said the venue for Alexander Usyk versus Anthony Joshua rematch is reportedly going to be set to be in Jeddah Superdome, which is in Saudi Arabia. I'd love to go. Like, I'd like to go to that fight. And it's no issue travelling to Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's fine. You don't need anything. You don't need a test. You don't need the Foghorn Leghorn. You don't need anything. But it's just, I mean, how much would that cost? It's going to cost an arm and a leg to get over there. And accommodation. Yeah. As much as I'd love to go to that fight, I think I can only limit myself to one fight that month. So, yeah. Even though I could get a media credential for that, you'd still be paying a crazy amount of money to go over there. So I think that might be one I'll have to just say not this time, but I'll definitely be intrigued. But Eddie Hearn has stated that it will be probably pushed back a couple of weeks to mid-August. It's looking likely it's going to be on Sky Sports box office here in the UK, whilst the Zone will get the international rights. Nothing strange or starting there. That's how they've done it for the last fight. And I'd imagine AJ moving forward, that would be probably how they'll do his fights. The Zone internationally, but Sky Sports get the rights in the UK. I'm not surprised that they're going to probably push it back a couple of weeks to August, because we're in June now. We've had no announcement. They'll obviously want to get a good 2 months of press in and, marketing for it. So that doesn't surprise me in the slightest, to be honest with you, that they've decided that they're going to bring that back to August or so. Yeah, makes a bit of sense. At the end of the day, with AJ having a new guy in his team, like Robert Garcia, I know it's not a massive amount of time, an extra 2 or 3 weeks, but it will help slightly, even if it might only help a little bit, but it's better that than just going fresh in how many weeks is it till then? 6 weeks, give or take, about that. So adding an extra 2 or 3 weeks on won't make that much of a difference, but in terms of getting the fight marketed, it probably will help. In terms of other news, just starting from scratch here and working my way down, Danny Garcia versus Jose Benavidez Jr. has been reportedly agreed for July 30th in New York. This will be Danny Garcia's first fight at 154 pounds. I can't see that working too well for Danny Garcia, if I'm honest. Danny Garcia, even at welterweight, he's a good size welterweight, but I think, I can't see Danny having a run at 154. That I just cannot see. Danny's best weight was 140. That was his best weight, because if you look at Danny Garcia at 147, he's a good fighter, but every time he went to the guys, the cream of the crop of the division, he always lost. He always gave a good account of himself, except against Errol Spence, he was battered. But he's always lost when he's really stepped up, and he's never looked. See, Danny Garcia was known during his reign as, even before he won the WBC title, in fact, actually going back down to 140, he would always have these in-between cherry picks where he'd get like a highlight reel knockout against some absolutely obscure fighter, and then, he'd take a big fight in between, or a more competitive fight, not always a big fight, more competitive fight in between, or after I should say, and he'd win it, but he wouldn't look like setting the world on fire. And that's pretty much how Garcia's been. Against Benavidez Jr., he lost to Crawford 3 years ago, nearly 4 years ago now, and he only recently fought in November, just last year. He drew that fight. I think that was on the undercard of David Benavidez. I can't remember the guy's name he fought. Was it Devin Keon or something like that? Keon or something? But I remember that fight he fought last year. That's the last time he was out, and it was a draw. So we'll wait and see what happens there. Ben Whittaker will make his pro debut on the undercard of Hughie Fury versus Michael Hunter. Now, I have to say, I quite like this fight. I think that it's a very interesting fight stylistically. I think that Michael Hunter, he really is on the... I think his reputation has taken a big shot since the Hrgovic pullout. He ducked Hrgovic. Let's not beat around the bush here. And what was worse about Michael Hunter, and this is something, and I like watching Michael Hunter. I think he's a very good fighter. I do. But this is a guy who said before the Hrgovic purse bid was called, give him a fight against any top heavyweight, he'll do it for free. And then he walks away from the Hrgovic fight because the money wasn't right. Not a good look. And goes to Triller, where he fights guys like, was it Mike Wilson? And then didn't he have the Jerry Forrest fight? Or was it just he had the Mike Wilson fight, then the Jerry Forrest? I'll have a look here. I can't remember. But I remember the Jerry Forrest fight. I personally felt that Jerry Forrest won that fight. I know they obviously met earlier on. No, actually, he fought a guy called Sean Lockery. And he knocked him. It was 10-3. Mike Wilson was just, Jesus. I remember him against Lebedev, and that was a really old Lebedev too. And even then he looked poor, and then he had to draw against Forrest. Now Michael Hunter's rationale for it was he was going to get well paid, and I've no doubt he did. Triller do seem to pay these guys extremely well. But that's a bad look to be saying that, like, yo, I'll fight anyone even for free, to say, money's not right to fight Hrgovic. Like, what? So he's going in there against Hughie Fury. You know, Fury has looked a bit better in his last couple of fights. He has, to his credit. You know, he done a better job on Christian Hammer than most. He definitely done a better job on Marius Vac than Dylan White did. The Pavel Sowers fight, I do find that quite funny, because Pavel Sowers is 15-9 now, but at that time he was 11-2. And like, I have a lot of time for Peter Fury. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a very intelligent man. But when I was listening to him in the post-fight for the Pavel Sowers, he was making out like Savas was like, you know, someone who troubled most heavyweights, and he's gone on to become a journeyman. But I did laugh at that when they tried to make that out. And I think he's been stopped in pretty much all of them. 7 stoppages and 9 losses. But he has been looking a bit better, it has to be said. Fury is 27 years old now. So the excuse of, well, he's only young, you know, they've been using that excuse pretty much since the Parker loss 5 years ago nearly. And I never really bought, I never let it fly, because if you're good enough, it doesn't matter what age you are. Wilfred Benitez was 17. Imagine that, being 17 years old and winning a world title. I don't think we won't ever see that record topped. In my lifetime, anyway, I doubt it. That record is standing the test of time. 17 years old. When I was 17 years old, I was playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 till like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning on a school night. He's winning world titles. Crazy. But this fight is a good fight. I like this fight. I'm gonna go and say, just based on styles, just based on where they are and what I think both fighters bring to the table, I'm gonna go with Michael Hunter to win this fight on points. But I do think Hughie Fury can trouble Michael Hunter. I think the speed of Hughie Fury, when you see Hughie Fury in some of his losses, like Povetkin landed the cleaner shots, but that was a slower Povetkin. He definitely would slow down. You look at him against Pulev, once he got that cut, he seemed to capitulate very quickly, Hughie Fury, in that fight. And against Parker, he didn't do enough to win that fight. He didn't do enough. I mean, Parker didn't look good in that fight, but Hughie Fury just could have done less to it. It was just literally, I'm just going to nick the belt off you, just nick it. And the judge just said, nah, not here. Michael Hunter, I think his speed will cause Hughie Fury some issues. He's used to fighting some taller guys. And I do think against Jerry Forrest, he didn't look in particularly the best shape aesthetically. I know he was only 222, but I've seen him look in better shape aesthetically than that. And I genuinely think that he overlooked Forrest, probably because he beat him early on in his career, and he just probably assumed to be even easier this time, a little cherry pick, you know, an easy touch, and it wasn't. So I think Michael Hunter will take this. It's going to be a good fight though. I'm away that night, but I'll definitely be having my phone at the ready, just looking at, you know, clips of each round. Mick Conlan's going to return to the ring against Miguel Mariaga on August 6th in Belfast. Conlan, it's going to be interesting to see how he looks following on from the loss to Lee Wood. Many of you will know I never really rated Conlan too highly. Yeah, he can box well enough, but I always felt that he was way overhyped. And, you know, people always said, you know, gee, you're so harsh to Irish fighters. Why don't you give them the juice? Why aren't you patriotic? It's like, I don't care where they're born. I don't care what race they are, what gender they are. I don't give a rat's on this channel. I call it like I see it. I don't care if they're from the same neighbourhood as me. I call it like I see it. If I don't think someone's particularly good, I'm not going to pick them to win fights that I don't think they'll win. And I'm going to say, I'll say they're alright in this regard, but are they as good as did these people make them out to be? No. I'm not going to go along with the band just because it's the popular consensus or the popular narrative and because that's where I'm from. I just don't do that. I can't do it. It's one thing in my life that's always, I do it outside of this YouTube channel as well. I've always been one where it's like, I have to try and keep it as objective as I can at all times, no matter who you are, because that's just the way I am. And I just think it's just it might not, you might not make a lot of friends doing it, but I don't know, I've always been someone who's done that. And with Conlon, I see a guy with a bit of athleticism, a decent amount of boxing, but I don't see a world beater. And, you know, I always look at the way Team Conlon worked their way into that world title situation. Because I tell you now, the way they flip-flop from division to division, looking at champion and champion, that said to me they were looking at the easiest touch to get a world title. They weren't looking to take any major risks, and they obviously didn't perceive Lee Wood to be a risk when he clearly was, and obviously that was a regular title. But when he was at 126 originally, WBO was his route. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was Shakur who won it, and then he vacated to move up, and then it was Conlon, Navarrete 1 and 2. And Team Conlon were like, we can do bantamweight. So they went down to bantamweight, and obviously they were looking at WBA or WBA. It was Stephen Fulton's title anyway. That was the title they were looking at. And then we saw Stephen Fulton is a tremendous talent, tremendous boxer. Maybe not the biggest, but tremendous. And then they were like, we're back at 126. Oh, Lee Wood has a title? We'll take that. That to me was indicative of someone who was looking for the easiest touch to get a world title. They weren't looking to take, and look, lots of people have done it. Floyd's done it. You know, you tell me Carlos Baldemir was tougher than Costa Zoo. He wasn't. But when they speak about like being, like Conor says he wants to be the greatest Irish fighter there's ever been, you know, this, that. I don't see it personally. They'll be proven wrong, but I think that Lee Wood fight will take the stuff and clean out of Mike Conlon. I really do. Ryan Garcia versus Javier Fontuna. Didn't they talk about that fight? Wasn't that fight announced last year? At one point before Garcia took his extended break. July 16th. I'd rather see him in there with Isaac Cruz, but here we are. There you go. In terms of other news, WBO have announced for Jamel Charlo to defend his world titles against mandatory challenger Tim Tszyu. Parties have 20 days, July 20th, to agree. Otherwise, a purse bid will be called. I suspect Charlo will vacate that title. Not because he's going to duck Tim Tszyu, but I think that he'll probably look to go up to 160 pounds now. He probably will. So I reckon I reckon those belts are going to get fragmented at 154. I really do. Eddie Hearn has also declared that he's looking to put on Dmitry Bivol versus Joshua Buatsi for the world title in September or October. Joshua Buatsi versus Bivol. I've said it once. I'd say Eddie Hearn and Buatsi are absolutely kicking themselves they didn't go through with that Vlasov fight, because they would have got a good win there against Vlasov, in my opinion, judging by how he looked in that. Well, he retired straight after. I mean, it seemed like he was just finished after the Joe Smith loss. But against Bivol, I like Buatsi. I do like watching Buatsi. I think he's a good talent. He's probably the most talented. O'Colly has done the best out of GB 2016, but Buatsi was the one I was most impressed with, and is the one I still do think probably has the most talent. You know, I mean, just when you look at him, he's probably the best out of them, but in terms of talent, not in terms of what he's achieved yet, I can't see him beating Bivol. He won't get stopped. I'd say he'll get schooled though. I'd say he'll get comprehensively outboxed. Hearn has also said he's looking to reach out to Gervonta Davis, and now he's out of his contract with Mayweather, potentially make him an offer to sign with DAZN and Matchroom. They need someone like Gervonta Davis over in the States as well, if they could get him, because we don't know how long Canelo will stay with DAZN. Will he go somewhere else? Will he go elsewhere? Will he look to fight Beterbiev Smith winner, potentially? So, you know, we'll wait and see there. But DAZN, Tank Davis, I don't think is as big a star as maybe Leonard Ellaby would have had you envision he was, but definitely he does good enough numbers anyway, and I think he'd help the zone out big time. So we'll wait and see there. This is an interesting one. Speaking of the WBO and the light heavyweight situation, Frank Warren has revealed that he's booked the 22nd of October in London for Anthony Yarde's mandatory challenge to the winner of Artur Beterbiev versus Joe Smith Jr. Right, just few things. few things. One, that's ambitious, isn't it? October 22nd. Those two guys are going to go at it, hammer and Tom, on June 18th. You really think they're going to be good to go by October 22nd? Those guys, best believe there's going to be fireworks in that fight. They won't be good to go by October. Hell no. Second of all, who did Anthony Yarde beat to become mandatory? Lyndon Arter. Really? That wasn't sold as a mandatory fight as far as I was aware. So Frank Warren's cozy relationship with the WBO coming into play yet again. Anthony Yarde, since losing to Kovalev, he lost his mandatory shot in 2019. He's had a loss, a win against the cream puff, a pudding, and then fair enough, he beat Lyndon Arters. I don't consider that good enough to be named mandatory challenger. But there you go. Anthony Yarde versus the winner of Smith Beterbiev. I wouldn't pick him over either. I was going to say, would you prefer to fight Beterbiev? Hear me out. Because Beterbiev is getting up there, whereas Joe Smith is still in his early 30s. And as Tunde would always say, timing is everything. If that fight is a really, really punishing fight for Beterbiev and he does come through it, potentially, I'm just saying, potentially, could Beterbiev's, because he's had, he's not had an extended career in the pro games, unfortunately, and you do kind of wonder, would maybe Father Time be catching up on him? So maybe that's the one they're looking at. But I can't see it happening in October. I mean, that's way too ambitious. These guys are going to go at it. Like, expect a good fight, Beterbiev versus Joe Smith. But both those guys won't be recovering from that quickly. I have no doubt about that. We'll leave it off here. The card that's on in Australia the weekend, we'll just do a quick little preview of it and we'll see who's on the card. I see David Nyeka is on that card, the cruiserweight from New Zealand. He fought on the undercard of Parker versus Fa in New Zealand last year, and he also fought on the undercard of Parker versus Chisora 2. I rate David Nyeka very highly. I rate him very, very highly. I think he's a very good talent, and I'll be keeping an eye out for him. Certainly, we're doing a live watch along for that. Just letting you know. Andrew Maloney is back out on that card, which is interesting. Maloney is alright. I mean, like the Joshua Franco trilogy, that's kind of what he's mainly known for, giving a good account of himself in all of the fights. I mean, obviously the second fight was a bit of a the headbutt and stuff like that, but he's on that card trying to make his way back. Who did he recently beat? Gilberto Mendoza. Not the same Gilberto Mendoza for WBA, just a different fighter. Oh, good lord. Oh no. Didn't realise this was on. Oh boy. Junior Fa is not the most entertaining fighter to watch. But he's in there against Lucas Brown. How old is Lucas Brown now? 43. Jesus, people. He got knocked out in a round last year by Paul Gannon, a rugby player, who got knocked out by Justice Hooney in his next fight. Oh, Jesus. Jason Maloney is the co-main as far as I can tell, although they might do Junior Fa versus Brown co-main. Ugh. I don't want to see Lucas Brown in the ring, man. The guy is shot to pieces. So Jason Maloney is back. I don't think he's fought since he lost to a new. Oh, he has actually. Sorry, I tell a lie. Joshua Green, maybe Joshua Green to be fair. Another fight there, just gone in April. Quick turnaround. And obviously Kambosos Haney is the main event that I'm looking forward to. We will, as I said, probably I don't know what time it starts. I think it's like noon or afternoon is when the card starts here. So we're doing a watch along nevertheless for Kambosos Haney. Watch along for Inoue Donaire. I'll have my prediction there for that on Friday, so stay tuned for that. For now, lads and lassies, I will leave you with that. It's going to go out tonight. I hope you all enjoy it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Help your boy out. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. Peace.